Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to invite all of you here and to have all of you here to the first ever fully online edition of the ETH Entrepreneur Club's FUCKUP Nights. My name is John, and I'm the VP of Events at the ETH Entrepreneur Club.
And I'm Juliette, a member of the Events Committee at the ETH Entrepreneur Club.
We're also joined by Francesco, which is right behind the camera right now, making sure that the stream is good looking. If you have any problems with it, it's his fault. Before we get into the fuck-ups of tonight, we would like to introduce you to the club behind this event. The ETH Entrepreneur Club was founded back in 2011. Since then, we've done countless fuck-ups. I can't even put them all on screen right now. I do have some numbers that I can give you right now. We have, in the past 9 years, managed to acquire more than 20,000 followers on our social media. These followers follow us and our 40-plus committee members in our three main goals. The first one, first fuck-up of the night. The first one, inspire students to explore the world of entrepreneurship.
We also educate them on how to make their startup dreams come true.
And thirdly, we would like to accelerate their projects and bring them from nothing to something.
The year 2020 was full of challenges. However, thanks to a quick adaptation, we managed to add a highlight to the year, the InCube Challenge 2020 Alpine Edition.
InCube is a yearly event that we organize since 2017. The main challenge is teams of 5 students spend 5 days together in what is usually glass cubes that we have set all around the world. You might have seen them. They were in Boston on the MIT campus, in Singapore, and also in Zurich and all around Switzerland.
But this year we decided to switch up the venue and to give participants some fresh air by bringing them to the beautiful mountain hut in Crans-Montana. And after 5 days, they came back to Zurich to pitch their final ideas in front of a jury, and the winners were awarded 10,000 Swiss francs to push their idea to the next level.
Now back to why y'all joined us tonight. Fuck-ups. The FUCKUP Nights are a global movement that was created back in 2012 when 3 friends in Mexico City decided that they wanted to shatter the taboo that was around fuck-ups and around failure. They wanted to embrace it and to learn out of it. And so they said, okay, let's create these events where we would invite people from political, sports, and the entrepreneurship world so they could share with us their failures and tell us what they have learned from it. So tonight, we have 3 amazing entrepreneurs that are joining us and will do exactly that. They will let us know exactly what they felt, how they felt, what they learned throughout their fuck-up experiences in their lives. Tonight, we want you to learn and to be inspired by failure. So
throughout the evening, you can share your experience on social media by using the hashtag FUCKUPnights. And also, of course, after the 3 speeches, you will have the opportunities to ask your question to the speakers through a Q&A session. So please specify to which speaker you're asking to, and you can submit your pictures in the Q&A section that you can find on the right side of your screen if you're using your laptop, and in the Q&A tab if you're using your phone. And finally, we have an exciting competition tonight that each of you can participate in. So please grab a pen and a paper, access the app, access the event through the Wova mobile app, and go to the Photos tab, and there submit a picture of yourself. Submit a picture of yourself holding a paper with your personal fuck-up story of yours, and the 3 most liked pictures will win one of the following prizes. And here you can see an example. And finally, we invite you to explore the sponsors and the partners booths.
We are truly amazed by the courage that these entrepreneurs have tonight. We are really in awe of their courage that they bring with them tonight. And to first introduce them, I'm going to invite on stage right now the moderator, and he'll let you through and guide you through the event. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Darwell. Welcome on stage.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Hi, welcome to the ETH Entrepreneur Club FUCKUP Nights. I'm Chris Darwell. I will be your host and moderator this evening. What an amazing event we've got planned. And we're coming to you from the office space here in Zurich. It's quite a cool location. It's where they faked the moon landing. It's pretty nice, right? So we've got an incredible night for you tonight. We've got a great crew, great location, and the speakers. Oh my God, these guys have got so many accomplishments, honestly. Their list of credits, they have more credits than I have debts. And I have a lot of debts right now. I've got a sugar mama paying off my sugar daddy. It's crazy. Just before we keep going, I'd like to give a big thank you to the ETH Entrepreneur Club for organizing this event. I mean, what an incredible group of guys and girls, just like people in their teens and their 20s who are already entrepreneurs, you know? I mean, meanwhile, I still need an app to spell entrepreneur. So, yeah. So I'd like to thank you guys again for letting me host this before I'm begging you for a job next year. All right, and speaking of the speakers, they're going to be coming on tonight sharing their stories of how they turned their fuck-ups into incredible opportunities, which is spectacular. It's kind of like they're giving you a view into their past whoopsies, you know? And that's why they brought me, because I'm more of an expert in fuck-ups. And when I say fuck-ups, I mean the irrevocable kind, the kind you can't take back. In fact, most of my fuck-ups in life can be traced back to a single decision I made, moving to Switzerland. Because I came here for love, you guys. I did. I really did. It was love with a Swiss woman. No, it can happen. It can. It was a good relationship, but it was a bad breakup. And I mean, she took all the money. I mean, it was her money. But still, you know, we got in that point in the relationship where it was a little bit, romance was dead, and she wanted to spice it up, so she suggested we try S&M. And because we're in Switzerland, I thought she meant sales and marketing. But no, she meant S&M, and I was like, all right, you know, I'm game, let's do it. Tie me down. And she went, okay, I'm pregnant. Yeah, I had the same reaction. I was like, what, is this, are you joking? And she was like, I mean, I'm joking, but the test isn't, we're having a kid. So that was me here, and when I heard that news, I thought, you know what, it's time for me to be just like my dad was, absent. Yeah, I was going to leave. I was. I know I'm not proud to admit that, guys, but I didn't think I was going to be a father. You know what I mean? I didn't think I had the material. And then I met my daughter. And I remember when I looked into her little eyes and little face for the first time, I was like, I can't go. I have to stay. And I mean, fuck, you know, how hard can parenting be? That was my second fuck up, that thought, because it is hard, man. It is so hard. Oh my God. It's stressful. Do you know what I mean? It's really stressful. It's like, especially when you're outside, you know, everything's like, don't touch that. Don't go near there. Please don't put that in your mouth. You know, that's just how she talks to me, honestly. Glad you like that one, yeah. So, but the byproduct of that decision is that I get to live in Switzerland. And that was, I had never planned on living here, but it's incredible. I love living in Switzerland, you know, especially as an Australian, because I can tell people I surf and I don't have to prove it. It's awesome, finally. But the great thing about this place is that, you know, you can do so much here, and every week I experience fuck-ups. I learn from my own mistakes. In fact, just this week, I'll share this story with you. I do a lot of freelance work, you know, and early this week, I had to go meet a client at like death o'clock. It was super early on the other side of the city, and you remember it was snowing, you know? So I got up and I ran to the station because everything was running slower, you know, and I got there just as the train was pulling in. I jumped on, and that's when I realized I don't have a ticket. And I was like, oh God. But I was only 2 stops away from main station, you know, so I'm thinking, it's all right, I'll get a ticket when I'm there, it'll be fine. No sooner do I sit down than I hear, Grüezi, ticket control bitte. I'm like, fuck! Because these people, you understand, these people are ruthless in Switzerland. They have no care. You can't like bargain with them. You can't be like, oh, buy it the next one. They don't want to hear it, you know what I mean? So I did the only thing I could. I had an old ticket, and I just kind of held it out, hoping he'd be like bleary-eyed in the morning. You know, he couldn't really be like, oh. But no, he was like, it's not valid. I'm like, yep, that's pretty much it. So he gave me the fine. He gave me the ticket. And you know, he's like, don't worry about your ticket's valid for the next stop for 1 hour. And I was like, great, that's good news. I'm really glad I have a ticket for 1 stop for 100 francs. It's worth it, good money, right? So anyway, I got to the station, and then you better believe I bought tickets to my next destination. I bought 2 because I wasn't fucking around, you know? And I get there, and my client was late. He was late. Now, he's an older Swiss guy. He's actually in his 50s, mid-50s, and I really respect this guy. He's like a mentor. You know, I got a lot of love for the guy. And he got there, and he's like, I'm sorry, you know, the snow, everything was a bit slower. And I'm like, it's fine, man. He's like, but you got here on time. I'm like, yeah, it just cost me a bit. He could tell I was kind of feeling rough. He's like, what happened? Now, I didn't want to tell him, because I don't know if you know this, Schwarzfahren, or like, you know, riding without a ticket here, culturally, it's kind of frowned upon. You don't look at it well. And like I said, I respect the guy, so I didn't want to just, you know, blurt it out. But, you know, honesty is the best policy, right? So I just said, look, I was late getting here. I got a ticket. The ticket controller guys got me, and he went, oh no. And I went, yeah, I know. And he went, that's terrible. I'm like, yeah, shitty way to start morning. He goes, I know that feeling. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, it happened to me. And I was like, no shit. He goes, yeah, It was Germany, 1984. I had the ticket, but there was no machine to validate the ticket, and they gave me a fine. I'm like, it wasn't even his fault, you know what I mean? Like, but he went, so that was me learning my lesson, and now you've learned yours. And I was like, fuck, let's hope so, right? Fifth time's the charm, you know? Look, some of us learn really quickly from our mistakes, and some of us need it carved into our heads like the end of Inglourious Basterds. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit of a slow learner. But that's why I'm here tonight. I'm super excited to be here to listen to these people tell us their stories. And really, man, fuck-ups, they're one of the best parts of life, aren't they? Because without fuck-ups, mistakes, missteps, there's no errors. And errors are how we learn. We learn by adapting to our errors, you know? It's kind of like we all learn by creating our own blooper reel, you know? And at the end of the movie, isn't the blooper reel the best part? No, it isn't. Not at all. But it's fun to look back, right? It's fun to look back. And with that in mind, we're going to turn to our first speaker now. Now, I'm super excited to have this lady here. Our first speaker was born in China. She holds a degree in a Master of Science in Architecture from ETH Zurich, Switzerland, as well as a registered architect in Swiss Society of Engineers and Architects. In 2006, she co-founded ETH Design in Shanghai. In 2016, she expanded ETH Design to Zurich, Switzerland. She's the first Chinese entrepreneur to set up an architecture, construction, and property development company in Central Europe and Switzerland. Oh, my goodness. With ETH Design, she has completed various projects, such as the Roche headquarters in Shanghai, the Novartis office building also in Shanghai, and most of the Swiss embassies and consulates in mainland China. Her name is Zhang Zee. Zee was also voted the first Chinese speaker, she was the first Chinese speaker in TEDx. You didn't need to be voted for that, did you? She was just amazing. The first Chinese speaker in TEDx Zurich, and has been interviewed and reported on by many magazines and newspapers, such as Wallpaper, ANU, NZZ, Sonntagszeitung, and the Wall Street Journal. Zhang Zee also believes in energy and is a promoter and influencer for Asian architectural philosophy and feng shui in a contemporary global context. This woman makes Gal Gadot look like Waiting for Godot. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Zee Zhang.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I didn't really have time to prepare for this speech because I was really busy with a real-time crisis. I won't go into details about my problem, but I would like to share with you a simple message. Failure is normal. It does not matter what failure does to you. It matters what's your response to failure. If failure can make you a smarter, stronger, more loving, empathic, humble, grateful, and genuine human being. I'm glad to be here to share with you some of my stories, what I've been through. After my study in China, I wanted to continue my study in ETH Zurich because it's the best school in the world. Although I had an admission letter early on, my visa is rejected for 4 times. The first time is because of the language condition, which I had to fulfill. The immigration office said, only studying language in Switzerland is not a necessary reason to apply visa. Rejection. So I went to Germany and studied in Goethe Institute to receive the zentrale Oberstufenprüfung, which is a certificate with which I could teach German language in any college in the world. Then I applied again. Again, rejection. This time it's because I didn't have a bank account in a Swiss bank. Without the visa, I cannot open a bank account. I complained about my situation, and the other side said, Madame, I don't really understand what your needs, but you can come to our office in the afternoon. So I went. I realized it was the president who picked up the phone during lunch break while the others were gone. He listened about my problem quietly and said, we are corporate banking, we don't offer service for individuals. But I was really young. I had no idea about corporate banking. I thought it was a minimal request. I said, I just need a student account. He said, okay, let me see. 1 week later, and he called me back and said he tried everything. Unfortunately, impossible. I said, no problem. Thank you anyway. And he said, but I realized there is one solution that a Swiss citizen can guarantee an entry for a foreigner for one time. But I have to declare my wealth or tax, a lot of work. I could do that for you. I said, really? He said, yes, but do not make fire or break into others' house. Otherwise, I have to pay all that. I said, of course not. No. So he helped me with the bank account. Then applied third time, rejection, fourth time, rejection. I spare you the details. At the end, the consul at that time, he wrote a long letter to the immigration office. He told me later on, he wrote, why is this so difficult for a Chinese student to study in Switzerland? Thanks to these gorgeous people, I could finally begin my study. Most of them became my close friends later on. I lost contact with this banker. 16 years later, I found him again in LinkedIn, and we organized a lunch to get to know each other. He asked me, have you always tried to search for me? I said, yes. He said, why? I said, first, I want to thank you face to face, which I never had the chance. Second, whenever I have a problem or difficulties, I told myself I have to make it through so that one day when you see me again, you know you didn't help the wrong person. There were not many students in the campus at my time, not many Chinese. 1 year later, another Chinese guy came to study. I asked him, how did you get your visa? He said he called the immigration office 284 times. Every time, 1 hour debate. At the end, they said, they will give him the visa, please leave them alone. Yeah. So after the school in ETH, I went back to Shanghai and set up my own practice. 10 years later, I had the intention to expand in Zurich, Switzerland. All my friends were cynical about it. There are enough Swiss architects. This is the highest competition here. Who needs a Chinese architect? But I was thinking, well, I just open an office, register a company, and see what's going to happen. And again, I realized it was not that simple. As a foreigner from third country, I have to create 5 jobs within 2 years. Otherwise, kick out of Canton Zurich. I still remember the day the officer who handed over me the permit B, he was teasing me and said, congratulations, congratulations for your B permit. You should have chosen an easier way. I was confused. Is there an easier way? He said, of course, marry a Swiss guy, and you get your house, your dog, and your permit. I said, now I have the permit B, so I can marry any foreigner or anyone I want, right? He said, yes, that's true. So now I can share with you such stories and laugh about it. But I do remember there were so many tearful nights because it's normal. Failure is normal. I still remember the 2 weeks ago, as I just ran into the crisis which I mentioned in the beginning. In the night, 1 o'clock, I couldn't fall asleep. I texted to a few my powerful clients and asked for help or advices. One of them called me back immediately. He asked what happened. I said blah blah and etc. He said, first, don't panic. Listen. He said, there are two kinds of people in the world. Successful people and not that successful people. Successful people think failure is normal. Not that successful people think failure is a problem. But they didn't know only through failure you can learn how to solve the problem. When you become the person who can solve more and more difficult problems better and better, how come you are not successful? When failure happens, successful people check first outside. Is this really what the society needs? Or does this create value for the others? If you verify the situation, if you still believe it is, then you know it's just the process. Not that successful people think the other people are the problem. Yes. And even if you fail this time, you can still reinvent yourself and come back. Sorry, I'm a little bit sentimental. Yes. Let's do not misunderstand the meaning of success. For me, success is not material or social status. For me, success is find out who you love, what you love, be in that love, make it happen, and share your love with the others. Only this way you can feel alive, both in work and in life. Such kind of success is much more profound and sustainable. A scientist has asked me once, how much chance for success? What do you think? I thought 90%. He said, no, 100%, because you just keep trying and until you succeed. I shared this story with a Chinese client. He laughed about it and he said, then we must live a really long life. So this is the most important message today. Stay healthy and I wish you longevity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zhang. Thank you for that. I immediately feel more successful as a person. That's fantastic. Oh, that was a great chat. All right, well, our next speaker, oh my goodness, Zhang Sedlacek. Ladies and gentlemen, Zhang Sedlacek, our next speaker. He is the co-founder and partner of Striber, Europe's largest independent corporate venture builder. Now, Striber is building up new lines of business for established companies. During his time at Striber, Zhang Sedlacek has already founded and grown about 24 startups. It's incredible. And prior to that, he was responsible for marketing at Swiss tour operator Kroni. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Transformed a Swiss private bank into the first hybrid bank and was a management consultant at Roland Berger. In addition to his expertise in venture building and the digitization of large companies, the Swiss native also brings his training in international management and business psychology to his work at Striber. Look, whatever cult this guy's about to start, I want in. Here to talk about the failure of reinventing yourself as a large company, please welcome Zhang Sedlacek.
Thank you. So, my name is Zhang. I'm a co-founder and managing partner of Striber, and I'm going to tell you the story of a very large fuck-up, which is the one of Kroni. And I was part of that startup, and I'm going to tell you the story so that you can learn from the mistakes of others, because as the previous speaker said, longevity, you're not going to live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself. So I'm going to use an image that you all know to lead you through the story, and it's the one of a big, beautiful ship that nobody thought could sink. And if you look closely, you actually see me there, because back in the days, I was a marketing director at Kroni, and I described my own job as the guy hanging on the rope on the outside of the Titanic, polishing the tea while the ship was sinking. Now, how did that happen? I'll start at the very beginning. More than 100 years back, Alfred Kwoni founded the travel agency in Zurich, and he became quickly very successful. He had all the ingredients for a travel agency, such as brochures, and he expanded, and with the oncoming jet age in the 1970s and 80s, Kwoni really flourished. They became the market leader in long-distance travel, and in Switzerland they were iconic. Their travel hostesses were all around the world, and Kwoni was all around the world. It became a large multinational group, making billions in revenues and having over 10,000 employees. Even it was a technological leader. The first information age hit travel and some sectors such as banking very early on. So it was a company that was driven by and supported by technology, and it was at eyes height with the icons of the day such as Swiss Air. Now I come to the end, which is about the year 2015 when Kwoni was sold. So around 2 decades later, you can say that company has failed. It was actually a fire sale. They announced they wanted to sell it without having someone to buy it. So worst possible strategy. So what happened? Within 2 decades, the company basically vanished. And it wasn't such a scandal as the bankruptcy of Swiss Air, because technically Kwoni didn't go bankrupt, so it wasn't as much in the media, but on the inside, being on the ship, it felt exactly like that. So, what happened? Let's scroll back in time and look at what happened before the ship hit the iceberg. And first, let's look at the iceberg. What was it that destroyed the company? You know that in the early 2000s, things changed, like travel changed. Hotels, airlines went on the internet, and new kinds of intermediaries started to make competition. In the beginning, they were small. And then also something else changed, like these guys, along with this one, like TripAdvisor, that's the first website from the year 2000, changed how people booked travel. For the first time, actually, people could give recommendations, and the travel advisory was done by peers. That changed travel for good. And you see that in the travel online penetration, which was almost negligible in the beginning of the 2000s and hit about 41% in 1 decade later. Today, it's way beyond 70% for flight booking. Now look at what happened with Kwoni in the same time. It was just the mirror image. The company went down as the internet went up. And so basically it's a very simple change in the environment. The paradigms changed. The first one Kwoni did very well. That was the founder establishing service and then operational excellence with mass tourism in the 1970s. But in 2000, for some reason, the company didn't manage anymore to change. So why? And of course the answer is not in the iceberg, but it's on the ship. So what happened on the ship that they couldn't change? Let's start with denial. What I just showed you in terms of revenues looks like pretty alarming, but that's not how the revenues looked like officially, because this is organic. You have to calculate that very cumbersomely. What was in the annual reports looked like this, and the difference is acquisitions and some sort of financial wizardry called activation of reserves. So that doesn't look so bad, right? So you can assume that you're actually doing a pretty good job and be confident about the future. The culture failed too. And that doesn't mean that culture was bad, but the culture was established from the early 1900s until the 2000s to sell travel the one way they knew how to do it, right? Through travel agencies and brochures and personal advice. And there was this paradigm of being a logistics company, a production line. What is left and right doesn't interest us. Now that was the culture of Kwoni. Pride. In 2006, that was the website of Kwoni, and they were approached by Priceline. Priceline just recently bought Active Hotels and Booking.com. And they offered Kwoni a deal to merge as equals. Both Kwoni and Priceline were valued at $2.2 billion, so they were actually equals. But Priceline was 700 people and a couple of websites. Kwoni was 12,000 people. So that was by no means something that was even something they would discuss. Now, of course, at some point it became evident and that's when I joined. So I'm part of the rescue attempts chapter, which lasted basically from mid-2000s until the end. And I'll quickly give you some insights of what we did. Like, obviously, when you're a manager, you hire a new consultant if you've got a problem, and we fused them all. And consultants do new strategies. In other words, they produce PowerPoints. And those values were outdated, so you produce new values on PowerPoints. And you produce a new branding to change things on PowerPoints and the rest of the surface. So you look different, but in the inside you still do the same thing. You can digitize and automate. We had a new core IT system.
Computer says no.
That didn't work. When nothing works, you exchange management and you reorganize, and you can do so every year again. If nothing happens and nothing helps, you do sales. You lower prices and you go out, and you do that every season of the year. If this happens to you, you know you're doomed. Then you starting to cut cost, right? Means you fire people, which you can do every year again. And at some point it felt at Crony as if the lemon was not only squeezed out, but dried out and the pits were falling out. You can do agile experiments, right? That's how you develop startups. You can do open innovation. We had a future lab. We were quoted by the Harvard Business Review as a particularly future-forward company. We did M&A. And until lastly, we did the one big thing. We bought GTA for $720 whopping million in an attempt to actually now become a digital technology company. Only we didn't. So that and some other transformational efforts that we're all seeing these days in other companies were basically all in vain. Now, what's the moral of the story? If all these things go wrong, this is a systemic failure. Everything collapses at the same time, which is what I call a clusterfuck. And if that happens, the people on the bridge are to blame, always. It's their fault, so it's a governance and leadership failure. But wait a minute, it's not so easy. Let's compare Crony to Booking, because they almost shared fate, but didn't. So let's look what... And Booking went through the roof, becoming the de facto platform for travel worldwide. The difference between the two companies is striking behind the surface. So Booking does not have a digital strategy, such as Crony had, many of them. It is a purely digital company in everything they do. And with that, I mean Booking was digital in the sense it had a culture that was outward, forward, customer-driven, long-term. It was data-driven, about learning, reinventing yourself, and humble. I've met the CEO, a humble guy. What I call undigital, just to contrast this now, the culture at Crony and basically every other corporate out there, which is sales and cost-driven, short-term goals and results, top-down decision-making, maintaining status quo, and having narcissist managers building their empires. Now, if you actually want to do what you call a digital transformation, it would mean to go from left to right, and this is exactly why it didn't happen. Not at Crony, and I would claim at many other companies it cannot happen neither. It's just too big a gap to bridge. Now, this is what we do at Striber. We are Europe's largest independent corporate venture builder. We've built dozens of startups already, and that basically means we put small boats into the water, and guess what? Many of them fail. And that's just normal. It's part of startup life. Now, look at the big ships. It's not the Titanic, but it's the other big ships out there, right? They try to do these kinds of things too, and they throw startups into the water only to go down, and then they say, it didn't work, I've always told you so, right? So that's not working out. What can work out is to build a speedboat fleet, but don't do it as naively as pictured here, and some examples from the Swiss market. You need to do it strategically. You need to put your bets into line. You need to have the philosophy of a venture capitalist behind, and then you have to draw these lines, and that's the most important thing that I want to convey to the corporates in the audience now. You cannot do this on board. You have to separate these worlds. It's a different thing in everything. This is, for instance, what we built together with Migros, which is Sparrow Ventures. We've created this kind of environment where actually startups can flourish, and guess what? Sparrow Ventures fail as well, and that's going to be a subject of one of the next startup FUCKUP Nights as well. Now, if you pass time, or eventually the big ships will lose in importance and the new ones start to gain. And Kuoni provided the best example. Kuoni created the biggest company that facilitates visa in the world. If you want to go to the US and need a visa, if you want to go to Saudi Arabia, every Muslim going on the Hajj, visiting Mecca, passes money into Kuoni's pockets. But it was not enough. Kuoni should have done more than that. So my lessons for large companies are, if you look at diversification, most companies do not diversify just as Kuoni did, which makes me giving a pretty dire forecast to most of those companies. And that's a study we've just recently completed, looking at over 1,800 companies over 10 years' time. They all try, 2/3 don't succeed. The ones that do succeed best, the ones that have more than 50% of new revenue after 10 years, those are the ones that outperform the rest. So diversification, in fact, and as a matter of financial return, is a superior strategy. It works. So now you say, what is this guy talking about large companies? But I tell you, there is a lesson for the entrepreneurs just after that. First, transformation is a myth, don't try. Do diversify. That is true innovation. It means building new business. It doesn't mean put PowerPoints on a wall. Speedboats, don't tie them to the Titanic, because boats sink, even the Titanic and even the speedboat, so you have to build a fleet, prepare for it, and build a portfolio instead. Now you entrepreneurs think, okay, I'm different, right? Wait a moment. First lesson, be humble, because most of you will fail. So statistically speaking, you're on a suicide mission. And this was just like something people say. We've investigated, and it holds true. 89% of companies are not around 7 years after they're founded. That's data for Europe. Some of them are still somewhat alive, but most of them are either dead or just shell companies. And only 11 we would consider a success, meaning they have either made an exit or are scaling up towards an exit. So what are my lessons for you entrepreneurs? And we've built and failed many startups. First one, speed up. That's the only thing you have in advantage against those Titanics and the dinosaur. And there is a quote by Mario Andretti: if everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough. Take that as your motto. Measure what matters. Figures are your friend. Go maniacally after your North Stars. Measure what you do. And lastly, don't be stupid. And with that I mean, learn from the mistakes of others. You won't live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself, and only then do your own fuck-ups. Thank you. My name is Jan, and I'm still fucking things up.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jan. That was a great talk by Jan Sedlacek. We're going to take 10. All right, fantastic. Well, that was such a good talk. I've got so many things in my head right now. First and foremost, I'm going to go home and delete all my PowerPoints. I'm going to make sure they're gone. Guys, we're about to take a little 10-minute break. This is a good chance for you to actually participate in the competition mentioned at the start. So if you want to get in there, there's a tab you can go into. And just remember, put a little sign on the thing that you fucked up, and the best will win that competition. Also, a really good chance for you to think of any questions for our first two speakers, Zhang and Jan Sedlacek. If you have any questions, just chuck that in the little questions tab there, and we'll ask them a little bit later on. So yeah, we're going to get a 10-minute break now. Go grab a tea, stretch your legs, Feel free to empty your mind. You might want that space for the next speaker. We'll be right back, guys. Thanks so much. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Hope you had a good break. Stretch the legs. Let everything just digest for a second. We won't waste much time at all here. We're going to go on to our third and final speaker for the evening. And this is a big treat. I really look forward to this, guys. Our last speaker is Robin Chase. Now, Robin Chase is a transportation entrepreneur. She is the co-founder and former CEO of Zipcar, the world's leading car-sharing network, as well as co-founder of Vinium, a network company that moves terabytes of data between vehicles and the cloud. She has recently co-founded her first nonprofit, Numo, a global alliance to channel the opportunities presented by new urban mobility technologies to build cities that are sustainable and just. Her recent book is Peers Inc., How People and Platforms Are Inventing the Collaborative Economy and Reinventing Capitalism. Robin lectures widely, has been frequently featured in the major media, and has received many awards in the areas of innovation, design, and environment, including the prestigious Urban Land Institute's Nichols Prize as Urban Visionary. She's been one of Time's 100 most influential people, Fast Company's Fast 50 innovators, and Business Week Top 10 designers. Robin graduated from Wellesley College and MIT Sloan School of Management, was a Harvard University Loeb Fellow, and received an honorary doctorate of design from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Honestly, I feel like I should need a PhD just to be able to talk to her. We're extremely lucky to have her here, coming to us live from Boston. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Robin Chase.
Hi, everyone. You can't know how much I'd like to be on stage there in Zurich with all of you, and I'm sure lots of us are feeling this way. But this way I saved on some CO2. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. I'm going to take you on a little bit here. Let me pull this up so I can do it big. So you can see I have gray hair and I have done a lot of startups. This one is the one I'm most well known for, Zipcar, which I co-founded in 2000. And I just want to sit on this for a minute. What was amazing about Zipcar was I knew absolutely nothing at all about transportation at that time, except for I was a user. And we did this at a moment. So Zipcar is when you have car sharing in Switzerland, in fact. So it's cars by the hour or by the day. And what we did that was completely novel is we invented the technology that lets you make that reservation online, and it got sent in real time to the car. And then when you held your card key at the right spot, the car would open to the right person at the right time. The early days when we were brand new, the month before we were launching, which was in June of 2000, here was our beta test with the 30 users who had signed on. We had one car that was sitting on the street out here out front, and people would make a reservation online, and it was like a calendar, like for a hairdresser's appointment. You would type in, I want it from 1:30 to 2:30. Then you would walk to my house, you would walk up the side yard, up the stairs, onto the porch, lift the pillow off the couch, and the car keys weren't there. And then you would go to the car, and in the glove box, you would fill out start odometer, stop odometer, start time, stop time. And then you would return the keys back under the pillow. And so that was the first month of operation. And then once we launched, I feel like it was like a black box, so people could hold their proximity card on the windshield and the door unlocked. But the reality was anyone with that card could have unlocked a car, and the keys were dangling underneath the steering wheel. And if you had broken into that car and stuck the key into the ignition, it would have worked. So it was for the first few months until we did make all the fancy technology that we have today. But in these early days, it was really, really light. So I want you to hold that thought. Zipcar was incredibly successful. It's a moment whose time has come, and I'm very, very proud of it. I think we were a cornerstone of the sharing economy, the collaborative economy, one of the first wireless consumer applications. And so in 2007, I started a company called GoLoco. And GoLoco was a ride-sharing company, just as you have BlaBlaCar today in Europe. So it was, if you're going from Boston to New York City, you could get in. Let me just move on. You'll watch me age here. In 2010, I launched a company called Buzzcar in Paris, and Buzzcar was peer-to-peer car sharing. And this company, we were probably 9 companies launched in Paris with the same idea in 2010, and we were not the number one, and we merged with them, and that was Drivey, and Drivey has now merged with GetAround. And so I own a very, 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 very small piece of that company. And in 2012, I did Venium, which is a vehicle network communications company, and my co-founder is the brains behind this, and he is still running this, and it's network company that takes data from the car and throws it into the cloud very, very efficiently using lots of different types of spectrum. And then most recently in 2018, you can see how I've aged up to today. I launched this new urban mobility alliance because I care a lot about climate change, and transportation emissions are the #1 industry sector in the world. So where I want to go with this is I want to take you back to GoLoco, which, as I said, was a ride-sharing company. And what was interesting about this time is I thought, oh, I'm really smart now. I know a lot of things because I had done Zipcar, I'd been really successful. We were way ahead of the curve. I would say 10 or 15 years ahead of anybody else. I'm using technology in an amazing way. I now understand transportation. I'm not a novice. So I spent the first, I went out and I raised money much, much more easily than I did the first time, because now I was an experienced entrepreneur with a great track record. And I spent about 6 months designing what that technology, what that interface would look like. And my pitch was, oh, smartphones now exist. We know how, we know where you're geolocated. And you would use the app to be able to say, here's who I am, here's my social networks, here's the car I have, here's where I'm going, here's the day and time, here's groups that I love, we can talk about things we're interested in. And as I say, I spent about 6 months and built this kind of robust platform before we launched. And then here was failure number one. It was a complete disaster. That what I learned after having spent a lot of money and hiring a person who was an early Google employee who had worked on their layout and their spare website and what the icons and the interfaces would look like. And I had really chosen this great person who listened to me, is that I didn't start with a minimum viable product. I thought, oh, I'm really smart now. So instead of touching customers right away, like I had done with Zipcar, and out of the gate, I had barely any technology, and we had a big idea, but very little technology, and we iterated and iterated and iterated. Here I thought, oh, I'm really smart. Let me build this website up and then launch with this build website. And so then I spent the next 6 months unbuilding, making it more and more streamlined. Because what I learned was, even though ride sharing, you would think you have to say, I'm here and I want to drive there, and this is the day or the time I want to do it. No one wanted to put in that much. Very specific vehicles parked in very specific places. This was all virtual, in a sense that, people could match rides across the country. And so, if you wanted to go from Boston to New York, or if you wanted to go from, I don't know, small town in the Midwest to Chicago, I mean, I really thought, hey, this is something that can happen anywhere. Even though we're going to do marketing in certain areas, I just was not laser focused on the idea that what you want to do when you've got a startup is you want to figure out not only what is my minimum product, but what is my minimum path to a success that I can hold up and raise more money with, or I can hold up to the press, or I can hold up to users and say, whoa, look how great we were at this. And so now we can start expanding the market. And, we should have started with New York to Boston, something that has a lot of traffic going back and forth. But instead, in my mind, oh, all university campuses, employers with a large footprint. And so I think, we just were too large a geography, which leads me to number 3, like, how stupid was I? Why did I not look more closely at understanding why I was successful at Zipcar, which was, I did a minimum viable product, and we were really cautious with our geographies and added cars in this organic bit by bit way. So we didn't lose very much money, and we were doing a great job. And so I I want to iterate, which I guess lots of people have. Failure, I think we all fail, but it's not failure if you learn something from it. And I used to tell my staff at Zipcar and in other companies, we're doing something for the first time. No one has ever done these things. So of course, we don't know what we're doing, and we're going to do the best we can. The path to success, though, is recognizing those failures, recognizing those problems, and change them absolutely as fast as you can. The previous speaker was just talking about what it's like inside big companies, and this is why startups succeed, is because startups are so close to the customer and so close to every process. When you see that something sucks, change it immediately, quick, move on. And I feel that, I think of this as, I put this sentence here, intellectual honesty. When I talk to entrepreneurs, I think the ones that succeed are the ones who are most honest with themselves about their skills, with the success of their idea as envisioned, with they're willing to see problems and iterate and maybe start transforming and taking the company to a different path. But people who don't succeed and who fail terminally are people who think they're always right, never examine failure, never think that they personally can fail, and you will never get ahead with that. So I think failure is an incredibly important learning process. And I want to say it's also not fun. With Go Loco, after 2 years of spending half of the money I had raised, I gave that money back to the investors. And I said, you know what? I've tried everything I know how to try. And when all the stars are aligned and we're in the exact perfect situation for real ride sharing, no one chooses to ride share. And so I'd say the difference between, and in the intervening now 13 years or 10 years since I gave my money back to investors, there has been no successful ride sharing company in the US. I would put Uber and Lyft in the category of taxis driven by people with their own cars. It's not ride sharing. And so BlaBlaCar, was founded by a friend of mine, BlaBlaCar is very successful because it's operating under a different economic structure than we have in the US, in that you can get lots of places without a car in Europe. You can be very car independent, but you can use car certain times, and public transit and mass transit is very expensive for those long distances. Whereas in the US, you can't get any place by public transport. You're competing with cheap car ownership, not with other ways of raising money. So I think that is what I have to say. Failure is important, and we all are happy to talk about our failure when it's a lot of years in the past or when we catch it really early. So catch your failures as quickly as you can and move on. And then just one upbeat thing is, if you're looking at your company really, really closely for failures in yourself or in your company, that inspection of the details also lets you capture opportunities and amazing things that you didn't know about your company that are benefits and advantages that you can capitalize on quickly and run with those. So I think this close inspection of and knowledge of your company and the ability to move quickly helps you in both the upside and the downside. Thanks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Rob and Chase. That was awesome. At this moment, we're going to keep Robin on. I'm going to invite the other speakers back onto stage for the live Q&A. So just a quick reminder, guys, that during this, you can ask more questions if you want to put them on. And also, you can vote for the questions that you'd like to see asked. So don't forget to upvote that. While we're on here as well, you still got time to enter into the competition. Just write down the sign, what your biggest fuck up was, take a photo, and send it into the link for prizes. The winners will be notified by email. So, Jan, if you'd like to come up, and Zee, come on up. Robin, we still got you?
Yeah.
Perfect. There might be a slight delay, but that'll be okay. All right, thanks for joining us, guys. You feeling all right? Good. Awesome. All right. Perfect. Good. So got a bunch of really, really good questions here. I'll open with a question to all three speakers. Do you think everybody can be an entrepreneur? Idols like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs seem so unreachable to the point where it feels like it's not enough. So that was sent in. Would you like to start? Go on, Jan.
Well, the answer is definitely yes. Anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur can be and should be an entrepreneur. So it's a bit like with the rock stars. You can play music and you don't need to be like the Rolling Stones.
Right.
you can still aspire to be the Rolling Stones, but you should start playing the guitar, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, there's some qualities you probably need, right?
Yes.
There's some. I mean, is there, I know, top 3 qualities you would recommend, or something you would say, like, you should definitely, if you have these qualities, go for it.
I think you know you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, really? It's embedded. It's like,
yes, it's just, for me, it was always clear that I wanted to found things, and that it's just something that is in you. And even if I was in these other structures, it's still in me. And at some point it had to get out. And I was totally incompatible with such a structure as Crony, actually. I was a terrible employee there, I have to say.
We've all been there.
So I really think you know it if you have this inner strive to do your own thing.
All right, so Nate and Zee?
Yes, I do believe that everybody can be entrepreneur, but let's not narrow down the definition of the entrepreneur. I think even you are working in another company, you can be creative, and you can be in your job but solve the problem in a creative way. So I think creativity is on everybody. That's by nature. I think it's our education are very informative. You have to study so much, and you forget less, just more and more about the creativity.
You don't let it foster.
Exactly.
Right.
But the people who keep the power, or let's say maintain and grow their creativity, they can be anywhere, do anything, and they, you know, so as said, you can be artist or whatever. I think that's kind of spirit. It's not about having own company or not. It's solving problem creatively.
And that's the entrepreneurial spirit.
Exactly.
Robin, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I do. I feel like Zee did a beautiful job talking about perseverance as one of the requirements of entrepreneurship, that if you think it's going to be easy and you can't get through failure, you will not succeed. So I used to talk early on so much about failure that one of my oldest daughter told me to be quiet, that I was making it too horrible for people. So I want to say it's really hard. It is hard. When you're succeeding, it's fun, but all the other times, it's really tough. And the other piece I would add, in addition to intellectual honesty, was one that a friend who was doing some headhunting for me, he was saying that I needed to hire, so he said, if you see something, do you think to yourself, oh, I can hire someone to do that? Or, oh, I wonder how I could do that myself, or could I build that myself? And I feel like if you're going to be an entrepreneur that isn't backed by large sums of money, you really need to be a person who innately thinks, let me see how I can figure that out myself. How can I do that cheaper, faster, better? Which friends can I pull in? Which things can I learn how to do? Like everything you've ever done since you were 6 will come into play as you build your own company. Right.
I love that idea that you just, everything in your life, you can use it all. That's really cool. Dig that. All right, let's go into a question for Zhang Zee. How is entrepreneurship regarded in China? That is to say, does the government foster entrepreneurship as much as Switzerland does? And also, is being an entrepreneur as trendy in China as it is in Europe and the US currently?
I see. I think
Start with an easy one.
Generally, maybe Chinese people are more entrepreneurial, let's say. Maybe. But I think entrepreneurial is an inside thing. It's really you want to do something so strong. When you eat, when you sleep, when you walk, you always think about you have to do it. And you cannot stop. That's kind of internal thing. Despite if the government support or not, it really doesn't play a role. I think that's kind of, it's from inside. Yeah. It has to from inside. Otherwise, when you fail, boom, you stop, right? Yeah. So you have to have something inside that is so powerful that it can overcome so many time of the problem, the process until it succeeds, right? Yeah. But I do believe that, I mean, I don't know, the government, I don't see that much, but I really don't care about. It's not an important thing, you know. Yeah. But I just came back from China last week, and I was in China for 2 months. At that 2 months ago or 1 month ago, I mean, you see on the TV, USA is the debate of Biden and Trump, and then there is so many COVID cases in Europe. But when you look at the Chinese, they just work silently all the time, weekend, and especially young returnees who studied in US and in Europe, and they go back, even some born after 90, and they have their own company, they work day and night, and super smart people. I mean, I get scary,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, that's a lot of intelligent people.
Hyper-focused. They're not being pulled in by this distraction or that distraction, they're just going for it.
And then you see the drive from inside, because they are in the level that they can choose the thing that they really love.
Right.
Scientists, or like mechanical engineers, or they found the topic that they are highly motivated and they are interested. They decide to devote their life on it, and then they just work. That is crazy. And it's a lot.
Yeah, I find I find that like a difference in the cultures is that Eastern culture has this sense of just complete dedication to a single craft, and they just go all in. All in. There's not like I gotta find myself first, and maybe I'll take a trip over here, and then I'll come back, and I'll decide.
Holiday or something.
No.
Forget it.
No, you just in, right?
Yeah, because when you do something you love, you gain energy. You don't lose energy. In Switzerland, people say they live for work or work for life or something. I forgot, whatever. That is totally wrong. I have to say, this is totally wrong. You need to find something you love. Of course, you gain energy the more you love. That's why scientists spend 10 hours a day in the lab. They love it. They get excited about it.
I definitely agree with that.
I think that's the secret, that you won't get tired.
No, I think that's true. Like, there's always that emphasis a lot of time on like pushing. You got to push yourself, do this, push yourself, do that. But I've often found the people I speak to like you, it pulls you toward it, right over every obstacle. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that answer. All right, move on to a question for Jan. If you already know that 9 out of 10 startups fail, how do you get yourself and the people involved motivated? Oh, that's a good one.
Well, first of all, we're working hard on improving that ratio.
That's a great start.
And actually, that's what we do. Like we try to avoid all the mistakes and like making more successes. And still, we lose most of them. So the question remains valid. And the answer is just like we fail as fast as possible. And the first time an idea can fail is after a week, where we lose 70 to 80% of all ideas. Yeah, it's just like you can rule out most ideas within a week because they have real serious flaws that you can get behind very easily. But the entrepreneur usually is in love with his idea, so he doesn't see the flaws. So if you just challenge it from all sides, that's where we lose already most. So that's not even yet the project, right? And later on, we really try to be as honest, intellectually honest as possible with ourselves. And the moment you recognize it's not working, you pull the plug, and the week later the team is on a new project. So all they do is like they finish the sprint, they document the learning, so future teams will be able to avoid the same mistakes, which is my whole philosophy of not doing the same fuck up twice if I can try to avoid it. And you just start something new. And I mean, that's for me is also the entrepreneurial spirit. And that's a cultural issue here in Switzerland and Europe. That's definitely not here. Failure is still a bad thing, and it's a weight in your head, and you failed and you're bad and your self-consciousness is bad. Skip that phase, just get to the next thing.
That's cool. It sounds like what you're sort of speaking to there is just really brutal honesty. Because the more you can face, the more you can confront immediately, the better you can move on with the problems and move on to things that could succeed.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's cool. All right, Robin, how did you come up with your startup ideas and how did you validate them?
I want to add that I loved the responses of my two predecessors right there.
They've been great.
You guys said the exact right things. That I definitely think that passion pulls you forward, and failing fast is important. So for the ideas, what's kind of interesting about Zipcar, so it's a Harvard Business School case, and it's one that's taught to every single first-year student. It's one of their most used cases. What I learned when I read that, when I helped them write that, was, wow, here was an idea that car sharing existed in Europe, but it was kind of, I want to say, very, very low tech. We would say mom and pop kind of store. It was really nothing. And what we did is we applied technology in a novel way that completely changed the size of the market, the size of the addressable market. So, which is to say that you can see ideas that are happening in other countries and think, oh, how might I make that suitable for this market, or do it with new technology that's just coming out now? So that was an important piece. For all of the things that I've started, I would say the passion definitely has come from me in that this was a service that I really wanted myself. So each of the times, and so validating, going back to Zipcar, and again to the minimum viable product, you will like this story. I had these 3x5 cards on which I wrote possible names for the company, and I also wrote possible taglines for the idea of what it was. This was around marketing. And I carried those little cards with me everywhere I went. And I would stop strangers on the street because I thought, you know, I can't just ask my friends because this is a market for everybody. So I would stop people at the bus stop, or at my child's swim meet, or in the grocery store, or when I was downtown. And I would ask people to look at those cards, and I will tell you some of the unchosen names for Zipcar. One was wheel share, as in wheels. Yeah. And we learned, of course, that wheel share sounded like wheelchair, and so we had to ditch that. And then we had 2 or 3 of the names that had the word share in it. Like another one was US car share or something like that, because it was a URL that I could get. And what I learned was that anytime you use the word sharing, people hated the idea. 40% of people hated the idea, because sharing for them meant, oh, it's going to be kind of 1960s granola, Birkenstock, sawdust on the floor, we don't like it. Or it means I have to wait my turn. Sharing means I have to wait my turn. So what I learned from the outset was definitely do not use the word sharing in any materials. And I would say it took Facebook to arrive 10 years later for us to get around this word sharing as a larger percent of the population.
Wow, that's crazy. People really turned off by sharing, by the idea of it.
They had some wrong stereotypes in their mind.
Yeah.
And so I would tell my staff, I'd say, don't use that word sharing. Would you call hotels bed sharing? Which is what they are. And so, you know, you don't want to think about that. But hotels are very much like Zipcar.
Well, when you put it like that, no, absolutely. No, definitely not. That was cool. This next question is for Jan, but I'd like to actually open it up to everyone. I'll start with you, Jan. It's considering your experience, how would you educate future business leaders and entrepreneurs? And more to that, is there anything you would change about our current education system?
Oh, big question.
Take your time.
Well, I think, actually I'm not that familiar with the current education system, so mine was 20 years back, so it's a bit outdated. But I think the system should do anything to instill curiosity and to try to make people figuring out things on their own versus learning what is in the textbooks. And that's like, basically, I went to business school. Oh, yeah, I know I'm in an ETH environment here, right? But I went there because I wanted to learn the tools to become an entrepreneur. That's why I went there. And that's what it is. There's nothing scientific about business school. So you're right, ETH guys. So I think that kind of spirit, like learning the tools that enable you to do something else, instill curiosity, foster creativity, try to be as diverse as possible. And that's to you, ETH guys. You have got another risk, which is becoming like the expert idiots. that's also like not the right thing. I think you need this broadness, and you need this inner thing that wants to get out, curiosity. I don't think the system is doing a good job right now, actually.
That's funny. That seems to be like quite a universal thought. And you touched on this before about like people are just like crammed in, stuff like that. So similar for yourself? Is there some things you would change, there things you would alter?
Yes, I think our education system is very much behind. It's really many, many years in, the technology, and also actually everything is updating every day, so much data, but our education is actually 20, 30 years behind. For example, if we want to study architecture, I think the most urgent what need to be studied is, for architects, is to study how to build CO2 neutral. You cannot find anywhere to study this. The architecture education is still like the shape and volume and the waterproof. The architects initialize all the construction in the whole world. If the architects don't know how to build CO2 neutral buildings, how can the constructor knows, right?
Yeah.
So this you cannot learn anywhere.
Right.
So, and also even architects, it happens so much. Like the architects like doing an operation on the planet Earth, but the architects, what they learned in most of the schools, they learn how to express themselves instead of how to diagnose the city, the logistic, and everything. The complex of the urban cities or the communities. So this is very much behind.
Right.
But I think, on the other hand, it has to somehow we cannot complain too much from, right? So I think learning is a personal thing. It's not depending, you have to teach me something. It's another way. Learning is personal. I think I'm also writing a book right now. I think the learning is not about the information, not only the knowledge. Of course, you need to learn the knowledge to know the law of nature so that you can respond, right? But on the others, let's say the most important is you learn the energy. I divided like 12 energies. Just for example, love, focus, curiosity, courage, empathy, and regeneration. All these are the factors that you need to learn, improve, and grow. And this, then you are invisible.
Yeah.
So I hope it will come in 1 year or something to share. Yeah.
Sounds great. I'm sure we promote it through here. And Robin?
I actually have thought about this a bit. I also have 3 children. So I think that we have to teach children that learning is not something that happens one time. It's a lifelong event. And so we're constantly, from day 0, knowing that learning is a lifelong process, and how to find things, how to learn things. Definitely when you're doing startups, you're learning things all the time. You don't know all the answers. The second is collaboration, and oddly in this moment of pandemic times, I bet people are learning much more about collaboration than we had in the past. Another piece is this idea of empathy, which I think is so critical, that we need to be able to understand people's perspectives and how to get inside that and to imagine their life and walk in their shoes.
Exactly.
I think we need that for life, and we also need that to be a good at whatever startup or product or service that we're putting in. And then lastly, I feel like we underappreciate or under-teach children that if you see a problem, you're the one to solve it. You're not supposed to say, I see a problem. It's the job for the street cleaner, the government, the teacher, the whatever to fix it up. When you see a problem, you should take that on and think, how can I fix that? That we just need to get a much larger sense of agency around us being in charge of our lives. There's a sentence that I've probably repeated too many times, is that with all of the companies I've built, and I'd say in my day-to-day life, I'm living the world I want to see happen. I'm living the world I wish to be. So I want people to have more agency and to have more problem solving. And so when you see it, you're the one to solve it. You're in charge.
I love that answer. So from all 3 of you, universally, it sounds like it's not just about teaching the kids and the next generations what they need to learn, but how to learn, and also their perception of what's around them and how to engage with it. These have been awesome. I'm kind of annoyed we got to finish up real soon. We got time just for one more very, very quick question. I'll just throw it out to all of you guys. What is more important, passion or a great idea?
Passion, definitely.
Definitely. G? passion or a great idea?
Both. Why should you have to choose? You have to have everything. You have to have everything, and if you can succeed, is still a question, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have everything, all in.
All in. Robin?
Then you have a chance to succeed. Yeah.
Okay, Robin?
To this point on passion, I remember when I hadn't started a company, I was listening to this radio broadcast. They were saying, oh, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, you're working around the clock, you're working 7 days a week. It's, you know, these 120-hour weeks, and it's day in, day out. And I thought to myself, oh, I never want to do that. But then when you have this idea that you completely love, just as been said, you are completely, those hours mean nothing. It's where your brain is. You think about it morning, noon, and night. It is where your mindset is. And so threading the needle, I would say, if you have real passion for success, you will recognize things that aren't working or things that don't work, and you'll throw them away. If you have this end idea of a value that you want to improve, that you'll find a path.
And just maybe quickly to defend myself, I also reckless with regards to
I'm with you. Passion.
The reason is just like I've seen thousands of ideas and they all look great.
Right.
So you know, it teaches you some sort of humbleness with regards to your own ideas, because by default everyone thinks his ideas are great.
This is
right?
true.
So you should take this. Try to take the outside perspective and be critical about your ideas. That's why I was answering passion, because passion drives you to the next one if your first one is a bad one, right?
Passion, honesty, ideas. This has been like so much fun. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys at home have enjoyed it. Robin, thank you so much for joining us here at Zhang Zee. It's been a real treat. Guys, thank you everyone for your questions. There's still time to join the competition. And for taking part in this event tonight. It's been really great. We couldn't have done this without you, and it's a bit of a different setup. Obviously, we've made the best of a fucked up situation, but that's kind of the whole point of tonight. So lastly, we'd like to invite the ETH crew, the Entrepreneurs Club, to come on stage for the final words. So over to you guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was great, wasn't it? I would like to take these last 5 minutes to thank all of our speakers again. We would also like to take the last 5 minutes to thank our sponsors and our partners. Our main sponsor, UBS, our cooperation partner, Startup Campus, legal partner, Valdavis, and our technology partner, Zülke Engineering. I would also like to let you know that we'll let the competition open for the next 10 minutes. Afterwards, we're going to close it, and we will get in touch with the winners very shortly. And then we would also like to thank our strategic partners that you can see on screen right now. If you wish, you could give us feedback. It would be highly appreciated, so we know exactly what we fucked up and what we didn't, and we will improve the event for next time. And then finally, I would like to invite Juliette and Francesco on stage that have helped me in the past 4 months to organize this event, and then also the entire Entrepreneur Club that you can see on the screen right now. On the behalf of the entire Entrepreneur Club, thank you very much and have a good evening. Bye-bye, everyone.
That